The first thing Emily noticed when she stepped into the tiny coffee shop was how quiet it was. The air smelled faintly of roasted beans and fresh cinnamon rolls, sunlight pouring through the large glass windows and landing softly on the wooden tables. A bell chimed behind her as the door closed, and she looked around the small space, just 4 tables, 1 old espresso machine, and a handwritten chalkboard menu that seemed to change daily. She gave a faint smile that quickly faded when she saw him sitting near the corner table, looking up at her with those calm blue eyes that once made her feel like home. For a moment, neither of them spoke. She just stood there, clutching her purse strap, unsure whether to sit or turn back and leave. It had been 5 years since she last saw him. 5 long years of running from small towns, small dreams, and small promises. And yet here he was, looking at her as if no time had passed at all. If you believe in kindness, in forgiveness, in second chances, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes all it takes is one small place to make your heart feel big again. Emily sat down across from him, her hands trembling slightly. Michael smiled softly, the same easy, gentle smile that used to calm every storm in her. "You look good," he said quietly, wrapping his hands around a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold. She nodded, unsure what to say. The silence between them was heavy, but not unbearable, more like a song that had paused mid-note, waiting to continue. When they were younger, this coffee shop had been their escape. Michael had bought it from his uncle when he was just 24, determined to turn something small into something meaningful. Emily had helped him decorate it. She'd painted the walls, chosen the old chairs from a thrift store, and filled the shelves with secondhand books for customers to read. Back then, they used to dream about owning something bigger, a chain of cozy coffee shops in every small town across the state. But life had other plans. Emily was a dreamer, restless and ambitious. She'd wanted the city, the bright lights, the endless possibilities, the crowds that never stopped moving. Michael, on the other hand, was content with his little world, the steady rhythm of brewing coffee, greeting familiar faces, and serving warmth in ceramic cups. Their dreams didn't clash violently, they just drifted apart quietly, like 2 rivers that once met but now ran in opposite directions. When she left for Chicago, she promised she'd come back. But years went by, and life became noisy. The city offered her everything she thought she wanted: a corporate job, a sleek apartment, and a skyline that glittered through her window at night. But somehow, amid all that noise, she forgot what silence felt like. She forgot what peace tasted like. Now, sitting across from Michael in that same small coffee shop, Emily felt something shift inside her. The walls might have been small, but the air here carried a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She looked around, at the mismatched chairs, the smell of coffee grounds, and the couple sitting by the window sharing laughter. "This place," she finally said, almost to herself, "it's so small." Michael looked up at her, eyes soft but steady. "It's where my heart feels big," he said simply. Those words hit her like a quiet thunder. For a while they just sat there, listening to the faint hum of the espresso machine. Michael told her about how the town had changed, how Mrs. Campbell, the old librarian, still came every Thursday for her slice of blueberry pie, how a new family had moved into the old bakery across the street, how he still opened the shop every morning before sunrise, playing the same old jazz tunes she used to love. Emily smiled, her heart tugging with nostalgia. "You never left," she said. He shook his head. Didn't need to. She looked down at her hands and thought about all the things she'd chased. The jobs, the promotions, the people she met who were always rushing, always wanting more. The city had taught her ambition, but it had also taken something, the simplicity of being content. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Regret what? Not leaving? Not chasing something bigger?" Michael leaned back, eyes thoughtful. "I used to wonder about that," he admitted. "But then I realized, you don't measure life by how far you go. You measure it by how deeply you live. And this," he gestured around the small shop, "this is deep enough for me." Emily's throat tightened. There was something disarming about his honesty. something pure and grounded that made her question everything she had built her life upon. As they talked, hours slipped away unnoticed. She told him about her years in Chicago, how she'd worked herself into exhaustion, how her nights were filled with endless emails and her mornings with coffee she never tasted. She told him about the loneliness that crept into her perfect apartment, about the silence that didn't feel peaceful anymore. Michael listened quietly, never judging, just letting her words flow. That was who he had always been, the kind of person who didn't need to speak to make someone feel heard. The afternoon sun softened, painting golden streaks across the cafe floor. Emily realized how strange it felt to be back in this town, in this exact spot, and how everything looked the same yet felt different. When she stood to leave, Michael didn't stop her, but he didn't look away either. "I'm glad you came," he said. She nodded, forcing a smile. "Me too." Outside, the wind carried the smell of rain, and she walked slowly down the quiet street. The world felt smaller here, but not suffocatingly small. It was the kind of small that reminded her of warmth, of belonging, of hearts that didn't need to shout to be heard. That night, as Emily lay in her hotel room, she couldn't stop thinking about his words. "It's where my heart feels big." She realized that maybe all her life, she had been chasing spaces instead of feelings, places that looked grand but never filled the emptiness inside her. The next morning, she returned to the coffee shop. Michael looked surprised but smiled when she walked in. "Back already?" he teased. "I couldn't sleep," she said, laughing softly. "I kept thinking about your words." He poured her a cup of coffee, sliding it across the counter. "Careful," he said. "It's strong." They both laughed. And just like that, something eased between them. The years, the distance, the unspoken pain. It was as if time had folded itself neatly, placing them back where they were always meant to be. Over the next few days, Emily found herself staying longer in that cafe. She helped Michael bake muffins in the morning, organized the old bookshelves, and even repainted a corner wall that had faded with time. She watched the townspeople come and go, their faces warm and familiar. There was a beauty in their simplicity, in how they always greeted one another, how they shared stories over coffee, how they lived without needing more. Each evening, when the shop closed, Michael and Emily would sit by the window, sipping tea as the sky turned pink. They didn't talk much about the past. Some things didn't need revisiting. Instead, they talked about small things, like the sound of rain on the roof, the smell of cinnamon in the morning, or the quiet pride of building something that mattered. One night, as the town lights flickered on, Emily turned to him. "Do you think people like us ever find balance?" she asked. Michael smiled gently. "Maybe balance isn't something you find. Maybe it's something you choose, every single day." It was then she realized that love wasn't always about grand gestures or sweeping moments. Sometimes it was about choosing the same small world over and over again because it made your heart feel full. When Emily finally returned to Chicago, the city didn't feel the same anymore. The skyline still glittered, but it didn't move her like it used to. Her office walls felt colder, her days longer. She tried to convince herself that she could still fit here, that she could still be the person who once loved this pace. But every night she found herself scrolling through photos of that coffee shop, the one with mismatched chairs, golden light, and a man who found joy in small things. 2 weeks later, she quit her job. No one understood it. Her boss called it impulsive. Her friends called it foolish. But Emily didn't care. She packed her things, drove through the long stretch of countryside, and returned to the only place that ever felt right. When she walked back into the cafe, Michael looked up, startled, then smiled in that quiet, knowing way. "You came back," he said softly. She nodded, her eyes glistening. "I think I finally understand what you meant." He handed her a cup of coffee, the same way he had years ago. "Welcome home," he whispered. And in that small, quiet coffee shop, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and the smell of freshly brewed dreams, Emily felt her heart expand in a way it never had before. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the beauty of small things and second chances, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories to life. And before you go, tell us in the comments, Have you ever found something small that made your heart feel big? Because sometimes, the smallest places hold the biggest love.